Hello and welcome to Man's Model Moments, everybody. Good evening, welcome. We're all having a decent midweek. Just looking for someone to put my phone there and get rid of these instructions. Let's see, that'll become apparent in a little while, maybe. Right, I think we're going there, just about. So yes, good evening, everybody. Let's see, we have Steve, as always, Julian, welcome. Dave from World War II Scale Models, good to see you. Gary from Gremlins Modeling Mayhem. John Alec, good to see you. Ian Ellison, welcome. David Markey, Go For It Painting. Lots of hellos from David Markey there. Adrian Hook. Stuart. Leslie Ram. Where do we collect the beer and nibbles? Well, I'm empty myself, so if you're going, no nibbles for me though. Unfortunately, I think I mentioned before I am intermittently fasting, which actually I've lost quite a lot of weight in the last, I don't know, 3 weeks or something, maybe 4 weeks it's been going. I don't know. I can't remember a time before intermittent fasting at the moment. So I don't eat after 3 p.m. in the afternoon, which is, it takes some getting used to, but actually once you're kind of there, it's fine. So from 9 till 3 is my eating period, and then everywhere else I don't. I have the odd cheat weekend, so I can eat with Maria, so we can actually have an evening. But yeah, no nibbles for me, unfortunately. I think I've caught everybody. Phil, good evening. Oh, got fuels. Welcome. Good to see you. I must pop in on a Saturday. Saturday's a difficult one for me, but I will get to your stream as well one day. Be good to see. And I think that brings me up to date. So welcome, everybody. I don't really have anything scheduled as such or planned for tonight, other than, a few things I want to show you, and some news why we didn't have a midweek model meet last week. So some news there. It's not great news. But yeah, that's about it, I think. So let's start with the news. So unfortunately, as you know, I was doing some consultancy work last year, and I was on an initial 6-month contract, and I was expecting that to become a permanent ongoing thing, and it didn't, which left me basically not with any income. So at the time, I was earning about 4 or 5 times what my partner earns. So we went from, a healthy income to 1/6 of that. Now I did have a little bit of savings and stuff that we went through, but it's been pretty financially tight over this past 10 months or so. So I started the shop when I was doing consultancy work, so I didn't expect to have to rely on the shop. The shop turns over basically its costs, so it doesn't cost anything, but it also doesn't make anything. At the moment, I kind of need investment to be able to get the online sales up, for it to actually make money. I don't have the money to be able to invest in that at the moment. And so I've also been looking for the employment, haven't found anything suitable at the moment. So YouTube has been one of the primary subsidies, if you like, because I've gone over job seekers allowance. You only get support for 6 months in the UK. So yeah, it's been tough, and especially tough in the past couple of months. And we've had to make, basically we had a fixed rate mortgage. That fixed rate ended last month. So our mortgage rate has gone up by let's see, about 25%. So we've now got less income than ever and more costs than ever. So we've had the unpleasant, well, not realization, but and some of you will know that I've been going through the financial settlement in my divorce for the past 18 months, coming up to 2 years now. And that's been dragging and dragging and dragging. I really needed that money to support us through this next few months. And that is still dragging. It's still not. The child maintenance service completely screwed up, which has delayed it further. So when my job seekers ended, they assumed that I was on my prior chief commercial officer salary, not even my self-employed salary, my chief commercial officer salary that I was doing 3 years ago. So they were instantly saying that I owed my partner like £1,000 a month. So I only have one dependent daughter who's 18, but she's going into full-time education. So it's only that. So ridiculous. And I spent an hour and a half on hold, phoning them, half an hour discussing it with them, trying to get them to sort it all. They said they'd sorted it, and they did nothing. Absolutely zero, nothing at all. So they were supposed to send notification to my ex, and instead they didn't send anything. So she's like, well, you must be, you're earning loads now. So I'm just like, I don't have a job. So that, of course, has delayed all of their signing of the financial agreement side. So it's just been a nightmare. It's just been one thing after another. So we're having to sell the house. That's what it boils down to, is that we're selling the house, we're having to downsize. Which, if any of you know who have accumulated a large stash and have settled into a space that you don't think you're going to have to move out of, is a nightmare. Slightly different if you're getting somewhere which, like if you're renting or something, because you're going to move, so you kind of keep everything boxed up. But yeah, it's going to be horrific in that. And obviously, we spent a lot of money doing this place up from what it was when we got it. So yeah, it's been a tough old time over the past week, and we made that decision. So I actually had a role that I was applying for, which would kind of fix things, and I was in late stage interview, and then last Monday, not the Monday just gone, Monday prior, basically got back to us and said, yeah, we don't think you're a good fit, despite the fact it's a job that I did 20 years ago and could do in my sleep. But big companies want people that they think are going to stay forever, and I probably would have, because of no incentive to move out of a role. But their decision. So yeah, that kind of sealed it. That no, we can't wait any longer. We need to sell the house. So that is the reason we didn't have a midweek model meet last week. Because one, it affects the mojo hugely. That kind of news is very depressing. But also tons of stuff to do, because all the little bits that you leave, especially when you don't have money to actually do them, because when you've got money, it's great because you can just buy the stuff and do it. It's fine. Or pay for somebody to do it. When you don't have money, it's more difficult. So basically, we've got to go do all the sort of snag fixing to make it look as nice as possible to sell it. So if anybody wants to buy a beautiful chocolate box cottage, 17th century cottage, thatched, in Dorset, please let me know, especially if you want to pay over the odds for it. But yeah, we found another place which would be suitable, actually in Wincanton. So it would be ideal for the shop. It would allow me to spend more time there, and even when I'm not there, I could put a notice that just like, give me a ring if the shop's closed and you want something from it, because I could literally pop down in 5 minutes. Probably less than that, actually. Probably walk down in 5 minutes. So yeah, it's just a matter of getting this house on the market as soon as possible and trying to find a buyer. So it's been pretty stressful. And yeah, it's that is the reason that we've had the delays in certain things. So apologies for not having the stream last week, but that was the kind of the main part of it. So just going up a little bit to some of the questions that I can see some of the people putting in. So booze on shelf behind. Yes. So I think I may have told this story before. All of this. So when I was a teenager, so like 12, 13, not like a drinking teenager, but a teenager, we used to go for Christmas at my grandfather's, and he had what I thought at the time was a well-stocked drinks cabinet. You know, it's like a little thing that opened up, and it probably had, I don't know, 5 or 6 spirits and a couple of, you know, like sherry and stuff. And he used to make us snowballs at Christmas and things. You know, we were allowed that. You know, and it was always one of those things that I thought, when I grow up, I'm gonna have a good drinks cabinet like that. So when I was traveling, I used to get bottles of whatever the local tipple was, local speciality. So that is actually double. So there's 3 there, and then there's some ones below that you can't actually see. So there's quite a lot of booze there. And ironically, of course, as you get older, you drink less generally. So I hardly drink at all. So it'll probably be there for well, till we move, and then it'll be in the new house, obviously. YouTube chose it to stub me in the back again. Look, I noticed it. Well, 7 minutes left, and it was 20 seconds. Well done, Julian, for managing to get in at a good time. Steve T says, can someone tell me what AR and AL mean in Tamiya tank instructions? I think L and R mean left and right sides, but AL, AR? I'm not sure I've come across that in Tamiya instructions at all. Anybody knows? Do you know what is it in reference to, Steve? Because maybe if we know what it's in reference to, it might give us a bit of context to be able to answer that properly. So yeah. Oh, Dotfield says it's also late for you to pop in at that time. The thing is, I'm a real night owl. So both Maria and I have always been night owls. So me and my ex were not. She was an early riser and I wasn't. So it was kind of a bit of, you know, she used to go to bed at 10 o'clock and I was like, I couldn't, if I went to bed now, I just couldn't sleep. So yeah, late evenings, not a problem. In terms of the diet, yeah, intermittent fasting, I would say if anybody's thinking of wants to lose weight, but doesn't want to sort of diet in inverted commas, I would say intermittent fasting is a really good way to go. So the one that I do, as I mentioned before, I eat from 9 till 3. James from Scale Modeling Cafe does a similar sort of thing, but I think he eats from 12 till 6 or something. Usually there's a 6-hour window out of 24. So you eat only for 6 hours and you fast for the rest. So it's not like you're, you know, some of these ones like you don't eat for a weekend. I couldn't do that. My body would think my throat had been cut and I'd end up like killing someone to eat them. So it is literally, you know, you think, well, how can I lose weight doing this? So nothing is restricted. You can eat whatever you like, up to certain calories. So I'm only eating like 1,800 calories a day. Adult male requirement is on average about 23 to 2,500. Depends on your activity levels, of course. And I am not, you know, I'm not a laborer or anything. So, you know, sitting at a computer and stuff, walking around a little bit isn't particularly active. Although, interestingly, and there's if any of you know the YouTube channel Kurzgesagt, I'll try and put a link to it if I can find it. They actually did a recent video talking about how exercises are a terrible way to lose weight. So if your body is extremely good at balancing like your calories with exercise, and whether you're inactive or an athlete, you burn about the same calories. So your body is really good at adapting. Humans are supremely adaptable. The biology is amazing. The primary thing to lose weight is reducing calorie intake. So exercise does not lose weight. And there's a bunch of scientific studies to prove that. Exercise makes you healthy, makes you fit, but it doesn't make you lose weight. So controlling your calories is the big thing. So yeah, I've only noticed myself losing weight from like my physical changes rather than the fact of just, like, oh my God, I'm starving or whatever. So that's going pretty well. Thank you. The proper plastic. Thank you. I do like that title. That's good. And yeah, thank you. It's one of those things, life throws stuff at you. It's how you deal with it, much like models, it's just like, you can get a good model, you can get a bad model. It's how you react to it. I think Luke said this on Airfix and Chill this week, I wouldn't quite go as far as he did because he said there are no unbuildable models. Whereas I think, like Nigel's modeling bench said, if you've got something where the plastic is, not up to scratch, if it's melting or changing, it's like, well, that's probably an unbuildable kit, right? Because that's your basis. It's like trying to build a house with sand, that's not going to work. A few more people popping in. Colin Berry, welcome. Frank Holder, good to see you. Wow. Leslie became a civil servant at nearly 60. Rubbish money, excellent pension. Remote working 3 days a week. I would be happy working, remotely 5 days a week, 2 days a week, whatever. It's a very strange jobs market at the moment. Let's put it that way. The problem is, I think my CV, there's a number of problems because, once you've done, you've climbed the career ladder, people expect you to carry on. And if you apply for a job which is, like what you were doing 20 years ago, I think, well, why? And I think, well, surely you're not going to stay doing that. And it puts a big question mark in their mind, even if you just think, look, I just want to work, and I'd like something local, don't mind what hours, whatever. But yeah, it's getting to that point. A lot of people will just screen you out at that CV stage without ever talking to you. So it makes it difficult. Wow. Julian says, I was told I displayed a lack of understanding of the team that I set up. Yeah. I was once told at a job that I wasn't displaying leadership skills. And this was after I'd implemented a system which was then implemented throughout the whole of not even Europe, in EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And when I questioned my my VP and said, okay, well, what would demonstrate that? They couldn't answer. They couldn't write it down, in a PIP document, for instance. So yeah, I mean, sometimes there's just those things where it's just like they need to get rid of somebody. So they'll come up with some excuses and they'll connive away, or personal interactions and things, there's all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's always interesting when these things happen. John Mike says, yes, Kurzgesagt. Let me just see if I can find it. Because I would recommend it to anybody. It covers all kinds of subjects. And Kurzgesagt in German means in a nutshell, basically. And here we go. Here is the channel link. Let's just channel details. There we go. 22.7 million subscribers. Wow. That would be nice, wouldn't it? I'm just coming up to 22,000. Just a factor of 1,000 different. So each of you needs to go and tell 1,000 people to subscribe to my channel, and then I won't have any money worries. That is the YouTube channel. I've just posted a link to in the chat, Kurt's Gazette. And they explain big, complex ideas like climate change, some climate change things like, could we, what happens at the end of the universe, what happens at the beginning of the universe, virus outbreak, all kinds of stuff through kind of simple animations. And it's slightly tongue-in-cheek, slightly light-hearted. So I'd give one a watch and have a look. Right. Oh, that's a good shout, Julian. Tamiya AL acronym. Okay. Google is always your friend in these things. Yeah, I feel you. I love, the thing is, like, I love food, and that's part of the reason that I wanted to lose weight, because the consequences of loving food and eating food is the weight, surprisingly, because it's knowing when to stop, and food just tastes too good, right? And it always used to happen, whenever I used to go on holiday. Used to go on holiday a lot to France, and it's like, even if you've been dieting or something, and you go to France, and it's just like the bread and cheese. I mean, you've got no chance. I love bread. I love cheese. And it's just like, no. AFC Nugget, welcome. Good to see you. Graham Coxon, hello. Adrian Hunt, greetings from Trinidad. Wow. Don't think we've seen, well, we saw kind of Trinidad weather last week-ish. Can't really call it that when it's in the UK, can you? But welcome. Gav, good evening. So that's Kurt's Gazette. YouTube is filtering out the link up. Yeah, YouTube's weird about the way it works in that sort of stuff. I don't get it at all. But Davros, good evening. And if anybody I've missed you, Mark Glendinning, good to see you. So that's the unpleasant news. Let's get the unpleasantness out of the way first. It's always good, isn't it? On to more interesting things. So one of the things I've been doing today, so obviously with the Belvedere, I wanted to do something a little bit different than just an unboxing review. And a few people have been commenting on various places in YouTube, on I think we discussed it in airfix and chill and various other places about, building a model is really how you get a feel for it. And it's like, which is true, but trying to unbox and build every model, is impractical. But I thought it's kind of a reasonable format for the odd one. So with the Belvedere, that's exactly what I did, because the kit looks very basic, but I was interested in the subject after seeing one at the Helicopter Museum. I had these ideas, and so built it, and obviously found all the problems with it. And it is a truly dreadful kit. And just on that, so there were a few comments, which again I'll address. I think I addressed them a couple of weeks ago, but about how, well, it's a product of its time and we should be grateful. And, without all these crap airfix kits, we would have never had the kits today. And how do I paraphrase? That's bullshit. So, yes, kits have evolved. But let's face it, when Airfix was making those kits in the 50s and 60s, they were preceded by American manufacturers. The hobby started really in the US. So Airfix got in early in the game, and they really found their stuff took off in the US and then in the UK, and they became dominant in the UK and Europe during that sort of late 50s, early 60s time. But Revell were on fairly early as well. Japan came in pretty early as well. Tamiya started quite early. So, and some of the stuff they were making was light years ahead, right? Of particularly if you look at Tamiya kits of the 60s compared to Airfix kits of the 60s, there is little comparison. Some of those 60s Tamiya kits they still hold up today. Yeah, not maybe as the best, but not bad. The Walker Bulldog is an example. The Tamiya Panzerkampfwagen 2, is a standard, Mojo build. Is it the best Panzer II in the world? No, but you can get one for a tenner. It's a decent kit, and you can make it look really nice. And that's at the time, not too long after some of those awful Airfix kits. So we do look, I think, at Airfix with too rosy a coloured glass sometimes. That's not to take anything away from Airfix, but they don't put them on this pedestal that they weren't. It's not like without Airfix we wouldn't have modern modelling. That's just not true. There were so many other manufacturers. And, I think the US manufacturers often get forgotten a lot because, let's face it, they're nowhere now. They're absolutely dead. The US manufacturing scene is a fraction of what it once was. Now you can still get some of those kits, obviously. You've got Round 2, who picked up a lot of the AMT, MPC, all of those. Revell took up quite a lot of those. Remember, Revell originally was an American company. It's not anymore, but it used to be. That's how it started. So, things evolve all the time, and you can't just pick one company and say, without this company, there would be nothing. That's just not true. Would it be different? Yeah, it would, but it's not like it wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have Meng and Ryefield and Trumpeter and all the others that we look at. This was a massive diversion from what I was talking about. But so yeah, the whole Belvedere bit. It is a bad kit. Yes, it was tooled in 1959, but other classics, I'll call them classics, like the Bond Bug, you can't get a Bond Bug anywhere else, and they retooled that lost transparency. And you can, knowing that with vintage classics, yes, you do know that they are going to be, you're not going to expect modern tooling, and I didn't. But you do expect certain things, like you do expect it to basically fit together. Yeah. You do expect if there were big problem areas like the front transparency, utterly dreadful. I would have expected Airfix to have done something about that, to be honest, releasing it, because it's not that cheap a kit. It's £16. And if you think the completely new Shannon Lifeboat starter kit, so including glue, paint, your trusty Humbrol brush, which these aren't bad brushes, give Humbrol its due, or Airfix its due. The brushes they include in the starter kits they're okay. They're not great, but they're okay. The ones that Revell put in their kits are utter garbage. Yeah, you might as well just throw them away or use them as paint stirrers, or painting terrain or something, because they're rubbish. But Humbrol's ones are decent. And yet that is $19.99 RRP. I sell it for £18, and you can get it for that kind of price in a lot of online places, etc. So yeah, if they're looking at £16 for something that has had nothing done to it other than the cartograph decals, which are beautiful, and the kit sullies their their beauty somewhat. Yeah, I mean, if they'd just retooled that front transparency or the transparencies in general, because there's only like 3 windows in the whole rest of the kit, that I would have had a different opinion of than the kit that they actually released. The fact that it's a prototype, that you can't make a standard Belvedere, the HC1, which went into production, even the prototypes were upgraded to that again, now people will say, oh yes, but I've forgotten the guy's name, begins with G. Is it Gary? He made the Belvedere. I should know because I emailed him. He can't make it tonight, but he can make it next week. So he's actually, fingers crossed, that he can still make it. But he'll be coming on next week to talk about what he did, because I was asking him, really like what you did. It was a pig of a kit. He said it was a pig of a kit, but could he, release the CAD files? And he said there's a bit more work to do on them and stuff. But I thought that'd be an interesting, topic about vintage classics and stuff. So that will be next week. So yeah, you look at it and they think, well, you can make it decent, but the amount of effort that he put into that kit, the amount of times that he just wanted to throw it in the bin, he's still asking £16 for that. It's, you can get a lot of £16. Sorry, a lot of model for £16 these days. And it's not that I've got a thing against airfix, because the BF109F that they've released as a starter kit is fantastic. And it costs less. It's £11. So a bit of no rhyme or reason there. So I'm going to interrupt my blithering here because Penny Spitstop has a question. I was having a chat with a friend, and he suggests that to beginners, Airfix Classics are misleading, suggesting people think the kit is new molds featuring a vintage subject. Do you agree? I don't know. I think vintage classics are fairly clear. I'm not sure how they're described on the Airfix website, actually, but kit is new molds. I don't think there's anything really. I mean, the other thing is that Airfix do print the date of the tooling on the box, so I don't think they really are misleading. And the branding is different. They've been quite good about talking about vintage classics, so I think the information is there. If you look at anything new tooled from Airfix, it will have what they call the red box, the red stripe somewhere on it. Very different from the Airfix Classics boxing. So no, I don't think it's misleading. I think the fact that they include some of the kits as classics might be because the Belvedere I don't think is a classic. It's vintage for sure. I don't think it counts as a classic. A vintage classic would be something like I can't remember what the Harrier prototype is called, the P1197 or whatever it is, that is coming out shortly. I think that is a classic because, and again, I will view that probably slightly differently. I believe it's the only kit, the only tooling of that particular aircraft. I'll check scale mates in a bit just to see. So, if it's the only thing available and it came from a different time, calling it a vintage classic, I think, especially of an aircraft that went on to become so iconic, the Harrier, adopted by the US as the AV-8, used by us, used in the Falklands War, that is an icon of British aerospace engineering. And the prototype of it, I think that can be called a vintage classic, absolutely. The Bond Bug in the same way, it was iconic of the 60s, very much of its time. The Belvedere, So, you know, whether something is a classic or not is up to the debate. I think the Bloodhound, again, is a classic. But I don't think the vintage classics are misleading in that way, in the way that your friend was suggesting. But, you know, that's just my opinion. All opinions are valid. But there's a fair bit of information out there about vintage classics, both, you know, on airfix's actual website, on the box itself, and in the general community, that I don't think many people would be, you know, quote quote fooled. And certainly, if anybody, so I have a, so that is my chair making that noise. I now realise why Maria asked me earlier if I'd broken wind. I shall use the polite phrase, and I said no. And she said, "Oh, it sounded like it. Is this chair?" There we go. Look at that. I've got a fart chair. Not a fart cushion, a fart chair. Sorry, that was just broke my chain of thought there. Okay. So, so Ivan, this is a continual question with airfix. So in terms of bringing back to the UK, I understand the sentiment. Are you prepared to pay £5 more for each kit? That's kind of what it boils down to. And I guess most people aren't, you know. So airfix have to be competitive. I think, and I think Moss has got this one right. If they used a tooling company in the former Eastern European bloc, you know, in Poland, God, I'd ask, you know, ICM, could you tool? What kudos that would be for ICM. You know, if airfix came to them with cap in hand, can you tool, cast our stuff for us? But you need somewhere closer that you've got a better QC rein on, because let's face it, the Indian manufacturing companies do not care. That's evident. You know, that Belvedere wasn't molded well. And now, is that the tooling? Is it the production of the kit from the tooling? Maybe it's a bit of both. I don't know. But I do know that some of the brand new tools, the tooling's not at fault because it's brand new, CAD, electric spark welding, you know, all the rest of it. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, just as a follow-up, Penny's Pit Stop put the data's in a font that's tiny. How many 8-year-olds? That's true. That's true. The counterpoint to that would be, and this is, I'm going to shamelessly plug my shop and other independents, is if you're buying from somewhere like, you know, Hobbycraft or, you know, online, yeah, they're just going to sell you stuff. They do not care because it's all about profit. Even people like, and I will call out my competitors, Jadlam, you know, it's just all about getting the numbers through. If you go into an independent store, so if you come into my store, and this is what I was going to say, I have a guy, I say a guy, he's a kid, he's probably 11, 12, comes in with his mum fairly regularly, once every couple of months, 3 months or so. He always takes an age to choose something. He can never choose because, you know, it is a kid in a candy store kind of thing. You know, it's just everything is there and it's just, he wants everything. Of course, you can't make up his mind. So, you know, he'll often bring something to the counter and he'll take it back and get something else. And you can see his mum just getting frustrated because she's obviously not interested in modeling at all and just wants to get him something he's interested in and get out. But for instance, he picked up, you know, he's looking at helicopters and he picked up the Whirlwind, the helicopter, Wessex Whirlwind. And, you know, his mum said, you know, would this be suitable? And I'm just like, to be honest, no. You know, it's an old kit. You know, the ones that you want to take are, you know, these starter kits, these ones, these ones by Timmy or whatever. So you get that advice, So at the end of the day, unfortunately, there is a bit of caveat emptor in there. I think airfix have been fairly clear on their social media and stuff about vintage classics. I don't think they're trying to be upfront with it. If this was Revell, we're talking about where there is no difference between boxes of a kit that comes, out of the molds today or came out of it in 1950, then yeah, that's the point. But I think airfix are due credit for the vintage classics concept, even if individual releases in it may be less than optimal, let's say. So vintage classics aren't sold in shops that don't do mainly models. So I think airfix, I don't think that's true. I think airfix will sell anybody who has a Hornby reseller agreement, whatever they want to buy. There's no vetting in that respect. So I think it's more the fact of the vintage classics are probably subjects that those larger things like hobbycraft and stuff don't think will shift quickly. Because they are fairly niche, because let's face it, most of it is nostalgia. So we'll see. Yeah. Adrian asks, question, would it be possible to do an episodes on weathering, explain pre-shading, post-shading, and general weathering? Yes, absolutely. It's been something I've been thinking about for a while, actually. And there are a couple of things. Well, actually, let me show you what I've been doing this week. Well, actually, today. So today I built this, which I showed on the big bumper ICM unboxing stream I did last week. So this is the Leopard 2 A6 from ICM, which is, of course, the Revell kit. It's a Revell 2012 tool, and I built it today. So just one day. I did film it, so this will be part of an unboxing and build review. And I am in the process of building the ICM figures. In fact, if I add my other camera to stage, you can actually see these guys. Here's a guy who looks like he's off Wiedersehen Pet. Those of you who remember that series. He's actually the guy feeding the dog. And he's got his dog treat in his hand. There is Sir Doggo. Guy with a pipe. I haven't put helmets on yet, which is why he's got a head that looks a bit like Crichton from Red Dwarf. So put those together, and actually, if I take that off, you can see, I think you can see visually there the difference in the plastic. You can see the ICM is the typical ICM grey plastic. Revell's is what I call stone grey. You can see there's a lot more brown. It's a warmer tone than the standard one. Maybe if I swap this round, you can see that better. See the color differential there. And the reason I mention this about what I've been doing today, apart from obviously this will be a unboxing and build review that will come out shortly, is in those, it's kind of a new standard format for these that I'm kind of developing. I'm going to build stuff like the Belvedere up to kind of this point, up to painting. So you can get a good idea of what it's like, and if there are any problems in the build. And then I'll do a separate video on actually building the kit. And sorry, building the kit, on painting the kit and then weathering it. So there's a couple of things that I'm going to do with this video. One is obviously I want to do some of the that'll be post shading rather than pre shading on that, but also painting figures, because that is something that people have also requested. How do you paint figures if you're not a normal figure painter? How do you get decent results out of figures in a kit so they don't detract from what you've done in your scale build? Because many people are used to making a scale model but not painting figures, and they're quite different skills. So there are some shortcut kind of things that you can do to kind of make something. Again, you're not going to make something look like a golden demon figure painter, but it's not going to look like somebody with big googly eyes or eyes looking different directions and stuff. It won't detract from your model. It'll be part of it, which I think is a good base point to then build on later. You're not going to come in and be Leonardo da Vinci straight away, but if you get a good standard and then you can build on that, I think that's probably ideal. So yeah, and this is one of the things that YouTube's really good at, right? Is that there are lots of videos on about not necessarily somebody building something and weathering it, but on just weathering, on just how do you do this. And I do the same thing, because we all assume certain levels of knowledge. So I might talk about dry brushing, and somebody says, "Well, what's dry brushing?" So sometimes just going back to the basics is necessary. And it's one thing that I've been looking at and I've actually started writing the scripts for, is calling it the man's model method. It's the way I make models. So it'll be a basic series building up, like, taking a kit. And I kind of stole the idea to some degree off Jen at Genesis Designs, because she's doing a similar thing, building along. She's done beginners series before, where you take a kit and build it along with her. So it'll be a bit like that, but it'll be different, obviously. But it's how I build kits. So it's not telling you this is the way to build a kit. It's just showing you this is my methodology, and you take from that what you will. If you find, well, that way of dry brushing isn't for me, or that way of shading isn't for me, or whatever it is, then you do something else. It's one of the reasons I don't try and create models like Sully does, like Plasmo does, like Night Shift and everything, because that's what I would call model porn. You look at it because it's beautiful and it's like exciting and it's like, oh, that's lovely, but it doesn't actually tell you how to do that. Sometimes it can be inspirational, sometimes it can be depressing, because you just think, I'll never make something that good. And I've said that in my channel kind of intro video, is that I want to just do, and why I do mainly out of box builds, because I want to show something that's achievable, rather than something that people feel they could never do, because I don't think that's but it's not what I want to do with the channel. I think there's plenty of that out there already. So yes, it will absolutely be possible to do those episodes. You may have to wait a bit for them. I've got quite a full pipeline and not enough time to do it, especially with all the house stuff at the moment. But sure. So just go back to the Belvedere a second. So ACF Nugget. So the thing is with So British aviation history is, especially in the sort of late 50s, early 60s, you know, we were leading the world, in a lot of respects. And we gave a lot of that stuff away. I mean, the Russians, Stalin couldn't believe that we gave him basically the blueprints of, was it the Neen? I think it was the Rolls-Royce Neen turbojet. Maybe it was just a jet at the time. Can't remember. But jet engine. We just gave that. It's just like now you think it's insane. Why would we do that? And the Belvedere is a fairly minor part of that, I think. So it's very niche. And the thing is, the prototype wasn't around for very long. There weren't many of them, and they were all overhauled into HD1s. And that's what it was really. It was used in the Aden emergency. It was used in Borneo. And the aircraft that were used in those were not the kit that you see. Not the aircraft you see in the kit from Airfix. So again, I don't really get it. The only reason I can think of building that Belvedere is as nostalgia, because a couple of people put on the channel, maybe it's only one, that these kits are aimed at kids. Absolutely not. It's utter garbage to think that Belvedere is aimed at a child. It is not. The Airfix starter kits are, and that's where they should be going. Because if a kid today, maybe in 1959, 1960, all the way up to 1970 or so, a kid given that would be happy. But the alternatives to that weren't a lot. There wasn't a lot of TV, and quite often you couldn't watch it because, it was the cricket. And, my mum used to watch the cricket when it was on TV. And that was it, So there wasn't a lot of children's programming. It was only on at certain times of the day. Not everybody had a TV set. So you played in the street, you played in the garden, you went off to the local stream, and, you messed about, stuff like that. There were no screens, there was no internet. Now there are all of those things and many, many, many more things to be able to distract you. So if you spend £16, you can spend it £16 on a game, on Steam, or in some upgrades on a free app, on your phone, or a million other things. So what do you think the experience is going to be if they get that Belvedere for £16 and they get utterly frustrated building it? Because you need some pretty decent modeling skills to even get something decent out of it that doesn't look like a Belvedere. Never mind about, all of the filling and, the whole front canopy nightmare. And even if you're a kid and don't care about accuracy and stuff, it's still going to be a crap experience for a 21st century child. So I just do not buy the whole, we are not in 1960s, 1970s anymore. We're not in the 20th century. We're a long, long way from that. And whilst you might think that's a bad thing, it's what it is. Time marches on. We can't change that. So interesting, Julian. Average income in Poland is £1,500 per month. India is £350 per month. And here it's, I don't know what the average income here is. But I mean, the average income is a bit of a, it's not a red herring, but it's not the be all and end all. It's what they call directionally correct without being explanatory, because actually you're looking at a company selling to another company. So it's selling services, and the impressions on an injection molding machine, they're very automated. Yes, there's a labor cost to it, but it's probably not the main cost. So things like amortization of the actual things themselves, all of the heating and everything, that's probably a far greater expense than the labor cost. So yeah. Thank you, Penny. Absolutely, we need local bricks and mortar stores. Buy from my shop, please. Oh, apparently the average income in Poland is about £1,000. Okay, so definitely less than the UK. But I think there's also a difference in culture. So, and it's not to say one is better than the other or right. But if you think about the amount of, just think of the number of Polish immigrants we've had in the UK that have come here, set up businesses, and actually earned a lot of money, sent it home. A lot have gone back to Poland actually because there's better quality of life there in the UK now. But that's kind of it's just accepted, right? Whereas India has a different culture, and having done business with India, the business approach is almost alien to kind of a Western business style, whereas the Polish one is very much a Western approach. It is just very aligned, which I think things like language and cultural attitudes are a big thing. I've worked mainly for American companies. I've worked for a Japanese company as well, through a German subsidiary. That's an interesting culture. But American companies, whenever I used to go over to the US, it was always strange because I felt more, not comradeship, but more in common with people in Europe when I went to European meetings who were French and German and Italian and Polish and Finnish, because culturally we're much closer than actually America. American culture is actually quite different from European culture. So European culture is actually a thing, Just look at the way we eat our food. Most people in Europe use a knife and fork in the two hands. Some use just one, but most it's like two, and the kind of way that we eat and stuff is similar. Americans don't generally use a knife and fork like that. They'll cut stuff up and then they'll transfer the fork to their hand and then eat it, which you might do in private here. You would never do it at a restaurant. That would be seen as a real faux pas, So culture is a big thing, and it's much easier to do business with somebody who's culturally aligned and has the same sort of view and attitudes. So some of these are quite subtle, but yeah, it's one of those things. Whether airfix will ever move, because it is Hornby, of course, really, that's making those decisions. Whether they will actually ever move from it, who knows? I'm a long way behind chat now. Sorry. Question: is it possible to do PLW without oil washes? PLW, panel line wash without oils. Well, if PLW does stand for panel line wash, then no, you can't do it without washes. It's kind of indicative of the name. I mean, you don't have to do panel line, Again, what we're trying to do with any model is create the illusion of the full-size thing. The reason a lot of manufacturers have engraved panel lines now is that makes it very easy to accentuate those panel lines that you might see in an aircraft with a wash where stuff might accumulate. It's not actually how the real thing is built necessarily, but you're providing that impression. You can do all of that with pre or post shading. You can darken those areas without having to do a panel line wash in it. It's just washes are easy. Yeah. How long is that Leopard tank? It's pretty long. It's I mean, one of the things is one of the differences on the A6 is the Rheinmetall 55 caliber smoothbore gun. So I think the prior one only comes to about here, that bit shorter. but it is, I mean, it is a weird looking thing, isn't it? If you think about this, this is the size of a World War II tank turret. We're talking about that Tamiya Panzer II earlier. I think that's smaller than that. Okay. Oh, Dave, thank you very, very much. Good friend to the channel, has visited the shop physically. Thank you very much. He's also gifted many Man's Model Moments memberships before. So thank you, Dave. Much appreciated. Just trying to catch up with some of the chat questions here. Question, can you suggest a site where I can find rare kits other than eBay? I got burnt from a seller there in the past and shipping fees on some kits are criminal. Rare kits are difficult sometimes. I do have second-hand kits in the shop. They're generally not on the website, just because it's a pain, because the way a web store works, the way my web store works, is you have to create a product individually. Now, if you've got that, say, the new airfix 109F, for instance, create a product for that, you can change the inventory number. When that goes down to 0 and you get a bunch more in, you just increase the inventory number. For a rare secondhand kit, you get one of them and you've still got to do all the same amount of work. So, do you put it on regular products or do you put it on those that are one-off, especially if you're going to sell it for like £10 or something? I do have some pretty rare kits, but it really depends on what you're looking for. For my shop, you can always just email me. Just put a question in there's a little chat function on the website. You can just put it in there and ask. I'm looking for, whatever. If you're looking for a Tamiya 1/100th scale B52, that's a rare kit. I've got one of those. If you're looking for an old Revell Tiger, that's really old. I've got one of those. So, but they're one-offs, Other sites, King Kit in the UK is quite good. That often has not so much rare ones because they often go quite quickly, but second-hand ones that are, it's a fixed price. Shipping is pretty reasonable. You can also try Vinted, Vinted. That's mainly used for selling clothes and shoes and stuff, but there are airfix kits on there. It's a little bit better than eBay, I would say, because it doesn't allow commercial sellers. So you're getting back to how eBay used to be, when it was just people selling stuff, rather than companies selling them as a business. If anybody else knows of any sites, please pop them in the chat and I'll put them up. Okay. Here we go. I've just been told that ARAL and HLHR are air filter left, right, and hatch left, right. Wow. I don't think that's dumb. It's just, I mean, it's not something that I would have immediately thought of. Okie dokie. Yeah. Indy R1, not seen you before. Welcome. Did the FX 172nd 88mm gun from a nostalgia, as I did it as an early teenager, and rose-tinted glasses did not stop me from being surprised at how poorly cast the wheels were. Yes. And I've done several of those. I mean, the Bristol Bloodhound, which actually I think I've got the missile up here. Yeah, there we go. There's the main body of the missile without the ramjets. And this bit isn't bad. It is a Mark 1. And actually it's short for a Mark 1. It's not really 1/72nd scale. So I'm going to lengthen it a little bit for Mark II, I think, because the Mark II was pretty much the same apart from being longer. It was very different in terms of electronics and things, but the actual physical parts of it weren't that much different. So the actual missile isn't bad. The boosters are a bit variable. The launcher is, and the Land Rover is basic, really basic. Although one thing they give you in the Revell, the ICM stroke Revell Leopard, is this. It's just a little sheet of clear styrene. I presume it's styrene. Might be ABS or some other thermoplastic, but the actual part that you need of this is about 12 millimeters by 5 millimeters, which is about that section there. So this is ideal for glazing things like those Land Rover windows. So I'll give you a nice size piece of that. So that's quite useful. More of that, please, Revell. This wasn't bad, actually, as a build. It's a 2012 kit, 2012 casting. It's okay. It's the only Leopard 2 I've done, so I can't compare it to others. I don't think it's going to compare with something like a Meng or Ryefield or maybe even Trumpeter. But it's a decent rendition, and it's easy to build. There were a couple of issues which I'll save to the video. But then I think these figures really elevate that to something which is much more interesting. You know, having a vehicle just by itself or having a vehicle with all these figures, I think is a different proposition. $2,913 per month in the UK, apparently. I wish I was earning that at the moment. If I was getting an average income at the moment, our troubles would be behind us. Yes, pre-tax, yes. Roughly 2,300 and I like that. I like that, Taggers. Roughly £2,390.81. That's a pretty exacting rough figure. Michael says, have airfix brought their tooling to America? Oh, have airfix bring their tooling to America? We'd love to have them. The average monthly wage here is only a shade over $5,000. Yeah, I mean, that's a real problem in the States at the moment, right? So especially with the rise now of AI and automated systems, and now humanoid robots. I've seen in the US a lot of fast food stores, maybe not a lot, but some fast food stores, especially in California, I think, are introducing automated stuff, like automated fryers and automated servers and things. And it's like, so the salaries might be high, but instead of employing 10 people, they now need to employ 2, and a robot technician in the future, So it's only going to be a problem, I think, that increases in time. Good stuff. Good to see you, John. Phil spent years hunting down the Frog Whitley and Shackleton, as they were the only game in town. And of course, both fairly been recently released as new tools. Yeah, I built that Frog Whitley. It is horrific. Yeah, I'm really looking. I've got the airfix Whitley. I'm quite looking forward to building that at some point, because the Frog one was, good God, I did that back in the 90s, and it was really, really bad. The fuselage was warped. There was so much filler needed. It was a real pain. I was trying to make it because my ex's grandfather used to make the engines for them in the Midlands, but I just couldn't get it done. It was just terrible, terrible kit. Just going down through. Steve, question: what's your next live build model going to be? That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure. I'm up for suggestions on what that is. I don't really have anything particular in mind. So yeah, give me your suggestions. Suggestions on a postcard. Guess what? I've touched building my Whitley for years. Yeah, no, I get that. I get that completely. Which brings me up to date with the chat. Okay. So yeah, £4,000 average salary in the US. Now it has to be said, and that is more than the UK. It has to be said, that's an average, right? In both cases, it's massively skewed because of high-end earners. And in the US, there do tend to be, there's quite a demographic for that. It depends on state as well. I mean, just look at places like Detroit, which are, that used to be the heart of building cars in America, which are now kind of dust bowls around those areas. There's a real dichotomy that's been brewing for decades now. And the other thing is that the cost of living in the US, although people don't generally think of it, is much higher than generally in Europe. People tend to think of us. I'm just going to let John in. Good evening, John.
How are you doing?
You can speak firsthand about costs of living in the US, because you get a lot of, I mean, I guess here we would call them stealth taxes. We get income tax and there's VAT on everything. But that's kind of it. Under this council tax, there's, but they're kind of all up front. We don't have health insurance unless you've got, a private add-on, usually through your employer. We don't have sales tax. The price that if you get something for $1.99 in the shop, you get it to the counter, and you've got $1.99, you can take it out of the store. That's not the case in the States, as I found out before. Taking, your $12.83, you think, why is it this? And then they put sales tax and like whatever else is there, and it's just like, oh, and now it's $18. Exactly. It's like, okay. I understand why it was that weird price now.
Yeah, because your price is VAT is included, right? So if you see something £1.99, it's going to be £1.99 when you check out. Yeah, not with us. They so we have federal tax, and then we have what's called state and local tax. So on income, there's a federal tax, which is typically more than the state tax. But we also, so like when I file my taxes, you have to file federal and you have to file state. So like for instance, if you live in Devon, right, you would file your UK or English tax or whatever, and then you'd file your Devon tax. That would be the equivalent. Yeah. And then in addition to that, from our paychecks, we have Social Security, right? We have
what is that for?
So it was crafted back in 30s or something like that. It's a total scam. So the amount of money that you put in. So in other words, it came to be with, you pay into it, and then when you retire, you get this. It's like a state provided pension, right? But the amount that you pay in and the amount of interest, it's totally ridiculous. People have done the math. It's you're getting a fourth or a fifth of what it would get if they hadn't taken it out, and you just put that in the bank, right? And so when you retire, so we have Social Security, federal, state, Social Security. There's another one. Oh, so there's Medicaid, Medicare. So even though I'm not on, and so Medicare, Medicaid is a state-run health insurance. I've been paying into that since I was 18, and I don't benefit from it at all. Maybe I will when I'm retired, right? So at the end of the day, I see maybe 60, 55%, 60% of my paycheck. Then anytime I make any purchase whatsoever, I pay depending on what state you live in, you pay a tax, right? So if I go to you buy a car, you buy a record, you buy whatever, you get taxed on that, right? I get taxed on my home, so I pay a real estate tax. So yeah, we do get taxed to hell out here, and so it's pretty bad. But so our gas, I'm ashamed to say, so we pay so per liter here, maybe I'm paying 80 pence for a liter of gas, and so so our gas is right now it's somewhere like 360, 375 a gallon, which we complain about, right? So it gets over 350, we start to fuss. And so there's what it's 3.5 to 4. I forget which way it goes. And I think I did the math. And so yeah, we're paying about 80 pence per liter of gasoline here. And so we really shouldn't be complaining. But over the last few years, our the inflation here it's pretty bad. I understand it's pretty bad everywhere, but it's really bad here. And so your average family out here is paying way more than what we used to, especially groceries, and then gas. Pretty much everything has just gone up. Home ownership has gone through. It's really expensive to buy a house now.
Yeah,
here in the States. So yeah.
You see, ours peaked probably 6 months ago, maybe, and it's been coming down a bit. Obviously, we're more aware now because we're getting involved in the market, and the Bank of England reduced interest rates to 5%.
Okay, good.
Last week or so. So it's not as bad as it was. It's still bad, and it's still inflation. Prices will still go up. They're not going to come down. But yeah, looking at what happens in the States, it does seem to be, unfortunately, like politics, quite polarizing as well, because you get, like in California, you have minimum wages, right? Which means that, okay, a lot of places are just finding ways of getting less employees. Right. You've got to pay the existing employees more. So it's like, right, okay, so instead of 4 staff, we'll have 3 staff and just work them harder.
Right, because they raised the so the governor of California is probably the he has some contenders. So there's a handful of them, but he's probably the most radical socialist governor that we have in the United States. Is the governor of California, and it's why all these people are leaving, companies are leaving. Is they keep passing these laws that are just completely ludicrous. Anyways, he passed this minimum wage, $20 an hour for a 16-year-old to flip your burger at In-N-Out, right? So the in and out. So if they raise the minimum wage by 25%, they're going to get rid of 25% of their workforce, and that is exactly what has happened. And so you have all of these businesses that have been going out of business because they can't afford to pay, the most unqualified, basic employees. They can't pay them because in addition to that 20%, if they're full time, they've got to match all this insurance and so it's not just they're paying them $20 an hour. It's really like they're paying them almost $30 an hour and that kind of stuff. That's their real cost.
Yeah. It's mad to see. It is mad to see. So yeah, in the UK, we don't always have a VAT shown, but it does. You have to show it by law in retail. Websites, yes, they can show an ex-VAT price. That tends to be more for businesses because people get wise to it pretty quickly, right? When they check out and see the tax isn't included. So it's not a great practice because if everybody was doing it, people would accept it. But because other places don't, then the places that do, they tend to fall by the wayside a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does tend to be those kind of companies, I think, Julian, like you say, doing solar panels or kind of businesses selling to consumers, which probably used to selling to businesses,
Yeah,
so that's where I found it, at least.
Yeah, if you put solar panels on your house, you cannot take them off.
Really?
Yeah. Once you put solar panels on the roof of your house, you cannot take them off. Which it's okay. That's why you put them up there. But we trade houses a lot here. I think probably more than anywhere else, where people are constantly moving around and stuff. So yeah.
So John, have you ever done a Leopard 2?
I did. So maybe not. No, not a Leopard 2. I did a Leopard in the 80s, and it was it was either the Revell or Tester's kit. It had the yellow. It might have been. It was Tester's, I guess, back then, and very cool, very cool. Because I did I did two Merkavas in the 80s, and I was in high school in the 80s, and they have very similar kind of looks to them, right? They're very
the new one with this kind of the spaced armor on the front.
Yeah, no, it would have been
more of a Merkava look, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This wasn't a bad build actually at all. If you were coming to armor for the first time, maybe not the first time, maybe if you want to do like a modern one that you've done, like the Walker Bulldog or a Panzer II or something, that's not a bad kit. I think depending on price, I wouldn't have paid a lot for it, but it was an enjoyable build for the most part, with a couple of exceptions.
Right.
But yeah, we'll see how it looks once it's all painted up and weathered. Get some mud on it and get the figures on.
What is that tank painted with? What's the color? Is it that bronze green or?
No, it's the NATO brown, NATO green, NATO black.
Okay, that tricolor. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all
tar black and NATO brown and NATO green. I think it's NATO bronze green. I think that's what they call it. But
yeah, because Tamiya do those three colors, don't they?
Okay, cool. It's Mr. Color.
And Outlaw do a set as well.
Cool.
I think I'm out of one of them though. Otherwise, I might have stolen some for this. I do need to get another order in when Moss has his new stock to replenish. But what are you building at the moment then, John?
Oh,
Have you finished that Merkava now?
almost. Yeah, I'm almost done. So I'm in the final stages of weathering, and hopefully I'll get that done and get that out to a dear friend of mine, and then I'm almost done with the Model A. I just have to put the little chrome pieces on and do the cover, the canvas, the canvas. And it's all painted. I got to do the frame, but.
How's the final sort of stage of the build? Because I
Yes.
think you said you had some fit issues.
I did. I just patiently worked through them, and it's pretty much all fitted in now and ready to roll. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised when you said that because I did the another one I've got coming for the channel actually. Their new Hummer, ICM's Hummer.
Oh, right. Yeah, that looked pretty cool.
Which is a nice little mojo build actually. That's quite good. And that went together faultlessly,
Okay, cool.
One of the things that it does do, did the Model A have separate pieces for the chassis that you had to put together?
Yes.
Yeah. You see the smaller ones, because I noticed this on the KFZ 70 as well, that I showed last week. The smaller kind of vehicles have a single piece chassis that you then add stuff onto.
Okay.
And I think that helps a lot,
It does.
Although I have built a couple of the trucks where I've not had any alignment issues with building the chassis, but it does take time and stuff. I prefer that single kind of base piece that then you can, at least that one piece is all right angles and it's straight
Right.
and everything.
All plumb and stuff. Yeah. I have to say it is definitely improvement on the last, I think, 3 ICM kits that I did. I did that G4, that Mercedes. I did that multi-A ambulance, and God, that was a nightmare. But
Maria's being awkward.
oh,
I'm asking her for a drink, and she's asking what water. Right. With ice, please.
Yeah.
Yes, just no more than one piece. She was indicating one for some reason, but not using this finger. I don't know why.
Uh-oh. That's funny. My wife just got home too. She was in a car crash on Monday, so I spent and she's fine. So I spent the morning taking
just a fender bender kind of thing, or
yeah, pretty much. She was in my car actually, and then was early in the morning, and she's fine. But I finally got it over to the we're working it out with the insurance and got it over to the shop today, and then went over and got a rental. So I've got a rental they give you a month. So rock star. She wouldn't. We've been together 30 years. She would never do that. She'd be like, "Get your own damn drink." So,
yeah, I have a model that I forgot to show it because it's been under the table because the damn thing is huge. But how about this?
Oh my gosh, look at that. Holy smokes. That thing is gigantic.
Obviously it's the Tahe, but which they've done a couple of boxings on. But this is with the universal military pod underneath, which is basically like a porter cabin, isn't it? Huge. It just shows the kind of carrying capacity of the thing. But I mean, massive, massive box. So, actually, Steve, you were mentioning about what the next live build might be.
Oh, nice.
I'm tempted to do that because I think having that massive, UMP underneath it kind of fills it out. It makes it feel a bit more like a helicopter because otherwise it looks a bit like a stick insect. might give it a bit more stability as well. So
Cool. That's a great looking helo there. Yeah. Yeah.
So indeed, politics, religion.
I agree. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind mentioning politics and, a little. I don't really have much on religion, but I don't mind mentioning them because they're part of our lives. But they don't really impact on modeling above and beyond that. There are separate modeling politics, which I'm happy to discuss.
Yeah.
What scale is it? It is 1/35th scale. So yeah,
big.
it'll go with the leopard. Yes, it certainly won't be a 24-hour stream build. That's for sure.
That I am so in love with that AK. It's the AK Extreme Chrome. It's just amazing. You can't mess with it. So once it's done, you can't really touch it too much. That's the one thing you got to be careful about. But it gives you a really amazing finish.
Yeah, I really want to try the Outlaw Chrome because what I've used Chrome for what I've used on Chrome parts before are the Molotov pens, which are really good. And they, if you want an oleo strut or something like that, they're fantastic. You can decant it because they're kind of these fiber tipped pens, so you can push them down and they've got a chamber behind them so you can get a pool of it. You can actually buy little like replacement canisters for them. They're quite expensive, but so you can airbrush it or brush paint it, but it takes absolutely forever to dry, and it's really delicate afterwards.
So cannot touch it.
Is that just a common thing with Chromes? Because I don't know. That's why I want to try the Outlaw, because Outlaw paints are so tough. I want to see whether they've got a formula that's robust, you can actually hold and then just wipe off your finger marks afterwards without leaving impressions.
I do not think there's a chrome paint out in the market today that you can do that with, that is impervious to fingerprints and smudges and it coming off. Especially that AK, it leaves a great finish, but the more you handle it, it'll come off. Yeah.
Oh, Michael has a question. In your opinion, who makes the best olive drab acrylic paint? I need to get a new bottle to finish building. Well, what do you mean by olive drab? Because there's more than one.
I think I have 3 or 4 olive drabs.
Yeah.
And they're not the same, but
there are different federal standards as well. I mean, much like many things, I mean, British standards as well. They are standard at the point that they were created, but they often change over time. So I think it's BS 381 was in. I think it's BS 381C, maybe 391C, something like that. Anyway, was the British standard during World War II. So that's where you get the standard for RAF Sky and Dark Earth and all of that. Well, I think Dark Earth wasn't a 391C. I think it was just a different one by itself. So you get these anomalies. Federal standards are the same, So depending on when you are looking, the federal standard might be. Federal standards, I think, are slightly more uniform than British,
correct.
To be
FS,
honest. But there are,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? It's like 5 numbers. The FS.
Yeah. One's like for whether it's flat, matte, glossed, or semi-glossed. It's a really good system, actually. The idea behind it, which is why I really like, companies like Italeri that actually quote an FS number with their paints and then suggested ones as well. But if you quote an FS number, you've got a definitive. It's like, okay, I know that's what it's supposed to be, and then I can make my choice. rather than just saying, "Oh, it's Humbrol 162," which is I don't even know what that color is, but brick red. It's like, well, what color is that?
Right.
So it depends what olive drab you're looking at, because when your olive drab was standardized, it might change the shade of it.
He says Russian olive drab. The best that I have this.
Okay, yeah.
It's Russian uniform green, and it's great. It's a wonderful color.
I was going to say, I don't think Russians had I don't think it was called olive drab.
Yeah.
Well, unless it's a modern one, because I think it was just Russian green during World War II, wasn't it?
Right. I'm trying to find it here. I mean, I know it's here somewhere. But the Vallejo and Tamiya olive drabs are really good. If you're brush painting, the Vallejo is probably better. But if you're spraying, that Tamiya olive drab is really good.
Yeah.
Let me find that Russian.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you. The grout pledge floor polish seals monochrome very nicely. I shall have to try that. I've not tried that.
Pledge? Okay.
That's a good one. I wonder if that will work with the AK as well. So, Indy, I have not tried the Ammo Atom acrylics yet. No.
There it is.
Have you tried the Atom acrylics from Ammo, John?
I have not.
I've not seen them anywhere, to be honest. And they haven't offered me any to review, so
yeah, that would be a new one to me as well.
Oh, Julian actually earlier said, "Can you not varnish over any chrome?"
It's not a daft question. It's a great question. I think theoretically you could put a like an acrylic varnish on it. It's something that you cannot mess with the. I think if you put any varnish on it, it's not going to look as mirrory as it did before you put the varnish on. Yeah.
The problem is with, I think any paint which isn't hard, for me, isn't fully set or cured at least, and then putting another layer over it, potentially, because the way a lot of paints cure is one is the solvent evaporation, and then there's often a chemical reaction. So, for instance, oil paints, it's the oxidation of those long chain fatty acids, which actually cures the paint, and then they're kind of stuck and stable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you varnish over it before that has happened, you could potentially stop that oxidation. It depends what you're varnishing it with. Or if you do it on a paint that's not fully got rid of all of its solvent, off-gassed, then you've trapped that solvent, and then that can lead to odd things happening. Either it can migrate into the varnish, and depending on what it is, all kinds of things could happen. That's where you can get blooming in varnishes, or you can get cracking, or roll the dice to see the effect. So I generally leave stuff quite a while before I attempt varnishing it, to be honest.
I do.
Yeah.
To make sure it's cooked off. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of that is, learned experience, and some of it is just that it takes a long time for me to get around to varnishing things. I've not actually heard much about the Atom acrylics. I think I've been asked, I don't know whether it was you, Indy, who asked before on this. I have been asked a couple of times about them, but I've not really seen much on them. I haven't gone looking for it, but good night, Ivan.
Take care, Ivan.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, they got a whole page dedicated to it. If you just, I just Googled MIG or ammo atom, and took me right to it. I'll have to. It looks like it's a lot of sets. Okay, they got some individual colors here, especially metallics. All right, I'll check that out later. Yeah, I'll try some.
It looks like they do stuff for sci-fi as well, and they got some metal colors here. Okay, so are they mainly metallics then?
Yeah, the sets look like they're like
ocean green
type stuff.
Yeah,
But the individual ones look like they're metallics. So I don't know. I'll have to look it up.
oh, they got
Oh, yeah, they are.
Schwarz green.
Tools color sets, interior tank sets, tires and rubber sets, and then
It's pretty extensive.
yeah, okay, I'll have to check it out. Interesting.
I might send them a cheeky email and see if they want to send me some for nothing.
Yeah. Why not?
It's not something I've done, to be honest. All of the collaborations I've had, I've always been approached rather than me going begging, because I do kind of feel like it is begging, because I guess it kind of is. But 22K subs is, it's okay to go and ask, isn't it?
We beg for stuff from time to time.
Actually, that's not true. I have asked. I did approach the Army Painter.
Okay.
About their paints, because I've used Army Painter paints before, and they got this new lot, and they're primarily aimed at miniature painters or war gamers. And I said, I think there's actually room to actually market these to scale modelers as well, because you've got a pretty extensive range, and your version 1 paints were okay. I quite liked some of those, and the version 2 ones are supposed to be really good. So and they did get back to me, and then I didn't hear anything from them. So
okay, oh, you tried.
So
doesn't matter to ask.
Might poke them again and say, because I've used their speed paints as well.
Speed, okay.
Which I like the contrast paints. I think Vallejo also do their own lane now, and basically it helps in. I mean, it's one of the things I'll be talking about when I talk about miniature painting, figure painting. But they're kind of like highly pigmented washes.
Okay.
So they are transparent, which gives them, and they do airbrush well, so you can use them as filters.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, I think there's a lot that we can learn from miniature painters, and I think there's quite a bit that they could learn from scale modelers as well. But we do tend to be quite separate communities.
Yes. And with their own sets of paints. So, the Warhammer and the miniature painters, there's this huge world of paints that they use that we really don't, right? So Citadel, for instance, or these other ones,
Well, hold that thought.
Give me 1 second. Hold
on. I'm bringing the javelin-sized B70 here. But so the colors on this that I used, this is a color called Ordic Olive. I think it's by Formula P3, which is really a mini painter's paint. But it's the closest match to this federal standard color of any paint I have, including all the Tamiya colors and everything else. Comes out as this one. This one, I can't remember what this one was now. But again, it wasn't I don't think this was a standard, like scale modeling paint, whereas this is Tamiya.
Okay.
That one. And they're the three colors that are almost perfect matches for the federal standards. So again, paint is paint. It's either good paint or bad paint.
Yeah.
And most mini painters demand good paint. They need good color. They need good color density, opacity. The ability to thin them down and stuff. So there's no reason why we can't use them.
Yeah.
The only thing with Citadel paints is they're bloody expensive and the paint pots are crap.
Oh, right.
But they also have some really nice things. They also have technical paints. If you want stuff for rust and things, they've got some really nice technical paints, like effect paints. Oh, there we go. Speed stroke contrast paints can be used on both. And for mini painting stock, great for World War I canvas effect, for instance. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Okay.
So I've been meaning to do a video on them for a while. I've mentioned them in other videos, and they, in fact, one of my very earliest videos on, I think it might have been intermediate modeling tools or something. I showed them. I think I painted a tank track using speed paints, because basically it's designed so that you can use it on a primed surface, like a white primed surface, or zenithal highlighted ideally, and it will provide highlights, midtones, and shades all in one wash, or one paint coat, effectively. So there are plenty of times when that would be useful for us. Yeah, Vallejo, I'm painting with Citadel, will do contrast style paints. You can also make your own. It's actually pretty easy. So if you've got hold of Dale Rowney or Liquitex inks and some acrylic medium, you can bang up some contrast style paints in seconds. It's super easy. Goobertown Hobbies actually did a video on it, probably
channel. Oh my
a couple
God.
of years ago.
Yeah.
Is that a Nimbus 2000 broomstick? It could be, couldn't it? It could be a Harry Potter prop, pretty much. Yeah. I just have this desire to just get it and throw it. It kind of has that, javelin-esque.
Sure. Get to the top of the football stadium and see how far it'll go, right?
I need to find some decals. I've got a set for an F111, which has several, sets that I can use for it. I just can't find the damn thing. So maybe when I'm packing up actually all my stuff to move, then I'll come across that.
Find it, yeah.
Alex, decant Citadel into the film canister. No, so actually, as I've mentioned before, I reformat all my paints.
Yeah.
So you can buy dropper bottles from Amazon. So it's just like that's what I did to all of my paints, to put them in Vallejo size dropper bottles.
Okay.
Because then I just have one paint rack, because otherwise you need a paint rack for Citadel size, for Tamiya size, Vallejo size. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, I get these. These are 20 ml bottles, and they seal up really well. They're about 40 cents a piece. They're not cheap, but I stack them like this, and so I can get, and I put, I type what they are. Thing. So AK Russian green, and so I've got all my greens right here, and so they're kind of stacked like ammo right in a tank, and I can find what they are, because the Humbrol containers, I don't have a lot of Humbrol, but I have a few. Opening those things up, you can't open those up more than a few times. It just gets crazy. And that the Revell Aqua, oh my gosh.
Oh God, yeah. Those are probably the worst scale model paint pot designs ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of one of those things that it looks good on design. I bet in CAD it looked great. It's like, oh, we'll make them square because that'll be distinctive. And then we'll design the top so it comes off and then acts as a, you can slide it onto the front so it forms this triangle thing. That's cool. And it won't spill out. It's like, it's just garbage.
Yeah. It's unusable.
So awkward. So contrast style, Emma, is this. It is basically like a heavily pigmented kind of wash, but it's not quite a wash, which is where that acrylic medium comes in. So it makes it a little bit thicker. So essentially, you still get coverage over the highlight areas. So the idea is that if you've got, say, a figure like this, and you do a zenithal highlight on it. So if you primed it black and then spray it gray from about 45 degrees all round, you end up with a gray figure with black in the shadows underneath. And then you get white and then spray it from pretty much directly overhead, like 90 degrees or so. Then you get a black and white figure, which is highlighted according to where the light falls. So mini painters often use zenithal highlighting before they paint because it shows them, or it helps them see how the light would fall, so they know where to put highlights and stuff. But if you do that and then use a contrast style paint, the contrast style paint is designed to accumulate in those folds and cover over so that basically it's transparent. So the bits that are white show a lighter piece, the bits that are grey show a mid-tone, and then in the crevices you get the shadows. So it's not, the difference between that and a wash is that a wash will pool in those dark areas, which isn't what you want, whereas a contrast paint will cover a little bit more evenly, but it's still transparent. That's what a contrast style is. And it's only called contrast style because Games Workshop were the first people that came out with the kind of official stuff. And then Army Painter brought out speed paints. Vallejo brought out theirs. Army Painter did a second version of theirs. So it's kind of a wash plus, if you like. Yeah, Tamiya bottles do have the worst thing is if you spill them slightly and then seal them. I did that with the clear red. Yeah, exactly. And then you do need a pair of pliers. Yeah,
I keep right here for the Tamiya bottles. Yeah, that's funny. Sorry.
Yeah. Although they're tough, you can use those pliers and you won't break the bottles. Which is impressive because they're obviously glass. Oh, the Olympics are calling. I haven't watched a single thing on the Olympics.
I haven't either.
Yeah, it's never really done it for me, the Olympics. Again, I'm not really a sports guy, so doesn't really, not really that surprising. But. Question: how does your Tamiya extra thin have to go before you give up on it and open a new one? I always top mine up, yeah, and obviously, as you know, it's not actually Tamiya extra thin; it's my own. I mean, really, it doesn't have an expiration. When it gets down to the bottom, I mean, you might be able to see on this. This is quite cloudy.
Yeah.
But all that is dissolved styrene, right? And most glues, like tube glue, is just this stuff or similar chemicals with styrene in them. So that's what thickens glue, is styrene. So which is why sprue glue works, of course, because that's just styrene dissolved in this stuff or similar chemicals. So yeah, even when you've got like the main thing is how far your brush can reach down. So I find that a Humbrol brush is actually, especially if like you've used it and the ends don't form a nice tip anymore, it's ideal for using as a brush and get your last bits of your extra thin out.
Yeah, I keep I have two here. One, the contaminated and the non-contaminated. So if I'm gluing, naked plastic together, I use this. But if I have to touch up and glue parts that are already painted or whatever, I use this. Yeah.
That's a good idea because this has only been used on plastic, so this discoloration is styrene rather than paint. Because
that still looks pretty good.
it'll take paint right off.
Yeah.
I mean, spoilers. My airbrush cleaner has some of the same chemicals in, because they're good at stripping stuff off. Apparently I've heard this. You can apparently extend the brush. I've never done it because I find, again, I top mine up, but I like that size. I think that's a nice size because that just gives, especially if you just touch it to the side, if you don't want too much, it just gives sort of the right amount. And if you've got longer bristles, you'll get more glue coming out. If I need more, I'll go to a paintbrush.
Okay.
Cloudy carrying extra thin. When it gets cloudy, is still useful for texturing surfaces. True. Or for if you've been cleaning parts up or seams or something, and you've got like that little little burry side, you just want to just brush it across just to smooth that off and get rid of all those bits. It's good for that too.
That's true.
Like that. Well, tried extending his, and it's not a telescopic one. Oh, did the bristles stay the same? Oh, I've got to look now. So it extends the actual... Oh, I guess it's this piece, is it, that comes out?
Oh my gosh.
Didn't work on mine. Okay. I'm not going to do that again. Okay.
Pavel's got to run.
I can see how it would work. But yeah, two tubes inside the other. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, you can just see the smaller end.
I've never tried that.
You can actually see how it goes in there, yeah. I'd just run a paintbrush. Nice design feature, though.
I just topped mine off. Yeah.
The worst thing is when you're trying to get that last bit, because it's quite a broad bottle. Oops. So, guys, we have reached the witching hour. I see 2200 exactly. Thank you all so much for dropping by. Thank you, John, for joining and
thanks for having me.
Holding the ship with me for a little while.
Absolutely.
Apologies, we didn't really have a subject for tonight, but as I say, it's been a pretty full and stressful week or so.
Yeah,
so
sorry, Alex.
We will get back on track with next week with an examination of of the Belvedere and other vintage kits, and really just on, when is it worth carrying on with that sort of thing, or when is it worth just thinking, I just need to buy a better kit? I think that's kind of the general theme of the topic for next week will be classic kits, not just vintage classics, but classic kits. I have I think it's a Testa's Stiletto, the US. It was like a supersonic test vehicle.
Oh, right. The Stiletto. Yeah.
It just looks like a dagger, basically, hence the Stiletto name. I haven't opened it yet because I know inside it's going to be of its time, let's say. But not many other people did a Stiletto. So, yeah, it's kind of that, what is that activation energy of, I'm going to go for it and I'm going to do it. When does that fall off into, it's just destined to die? But anyway, guys, have a great rest of week. Check out John's stream on Friday.
Yes.
For the Scale Model Inc. Live. And we'll see you again on the next one. Thanks, guys.
Take care, everyone.
Cheerio.